Do you know what keeps more people in chains than any prison? Procrastination. Not the kind that gives you a moment to breathe, but the kind that whispers, just a little longer. You have time. And time passes. But you stay exactly where you are. You see others climbing their mountains while you're still looking at the map. You promise yourself a fresh start every sunrise and break that promise by noon. You are not incapable. You are not without ambition. You are just comfortable. And comfort is the deadliest trap because it feels safe. But let me tell you a secret nobody shares. Procrastination doesn't make life simpler. It makes it heavier. Today, I'm going to share a story. A story about a young man who almost let his life drift away. A man who discovered that the most unbearable burden isn't failure, but the weight of what could have been. If you've ever told yourself, "I'll get to it later," and later never came, this story is for you. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never see procrastination the same way again. The sun had already climbed high into the sky when Michael finally opened his eyes. His phone was a chorus of neglect, buzzing non-stop with missed calls from his family, a flood of unread messages from friends, and a long list of reminders he had set with good intentions and then deliberately ignored. He let out a deep sigh, rolled over in his warm bed, and whispered the familiar lie to himself, "I'll start later." Later had become his sanctuary, his favorite word. The place where all his responsibilities went to die. Michael wasn't always like this. He was once a young man filled with fire, dreaming of building a successful business from the ground up, providing for his family, and becoming someone people looked up to and respected. But slowly, inch by inch, comfort had wrapped itself around him like a heavy, suffocating blanket. What started as one day of deserved rest bled into a week, and that week soon dissolved into months of inactivity. His ambitious dreams were postponed indefinitely, and a growing mountain of excuses took their place. That morning, however, was different. His mother appeared at his bedroom door, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness in her eyes. "Time doesn't wait for anyone, Michael," she said softly. Her words were simple, yet they struck him with more force than any shout ever could. After she left, the silence in the room felt deafening. Michael sat up and truly looked around. For the first time in months at the unfinished business plans, the dusty books on his shelf, and the undeniable evidence of a life put on pause. He instinctively reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over the social media apps, ready to scroll and escape once more. But then, he stopped. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he asked himself a brutally honest question: if today is repeated for the rest of my life, will I be proud of the man I become? The answer was a painful, resounding no. In that moment of clarity, something inside him shifted. Michael stood up. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-like transformation. There was no sudden surge of motivation, no overnight success. He simply made his bed, the first productive act of his day. He took a shower, washing away the staleness of his inaction. Then, he took a piece of paper and wrote down just 3 small, manageable tasks, small steps, he told himself, his voice barely a whisper. He completed the first task, then the second. The third felt harder, a real test of his newfound resolve, but he pushed through the resistance. By the time evening arrived, he was tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the satisfying ache of progress, not the heavy fatigue of regret. The days that followed were a mix of victories and setbacks. Some days were tough, the old habits of procrastination pulling at him like a powerful tide. On some of those days, he failed and gave in, but he learned something profoundly important through the struggle. Laziness was a permanent character flaw or a lack of ability. It was simply a habit. And habits, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be broken. 1 year later, Michael looked back at that pivotal morning and smiled. His life wasn't perfect, but it was his, and it was moving forward. The business plans were no longer gathering dust. They were in motion. The dreams were no longer sleeping in the dark corners of his mind. He was awake and chasing them. And it all started the day he stopped waiting for a sign and told himself the simple, powerful truth: stop being lazy, not tomorrow, today.